Welcome to the ALU podcast, your space for real conversations, bold ideas, and fresh perspectives from the heart of the African Leadership University. My name is Emanuela Briggs, and I am a student here at ALU, and I will be your host for today. On this podcast, we are going to unpack stories from across Africa and within the ALU community, from students, alumni, and staff to the everyday moments that shape our shared journey. In our very first episode, we're diving into a new era of education in Africa, a conversation that goes beyond classrooms and curriculums to unpack how ALU is redefining leadership, innovation, and impact for a new generation. Joining us today, we have
Elizabeth Babalola,
the Dean of ALU. Yeah, Dean, no pressure. She's giving us the inside scoop on how ALU is redefining learning, leadership, and what it takes to truly thrive out here. So, Elizabeth, Mrs. Elizabeth, welcome to the ALU podcast. Like I said, we're going to be diving into a new era of education here in Africa and starting with ALU. What drew you personally to this school called African Leadership University?
Let's take a walk down memory lane, shall we? If I'll be succinct, it was an opportunity to fix a problem in the conservation sector. So I'd worked in conservation at that point, if I include volunteer years and the years during my master's, for about 5 years. And one of the challenges I'd seen was a heavy reliance on donor funding. And I'm African, so there are a lot of proverbs in my life. One of them is, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. I will add on and say he dictates the dance step.
Of course.
The clothing that you're wearing for the dance, the location of the dance and your backup dancers. And conservation was and still is very donor driven. And that was a concern for me.
Yeah.
When I was introduced to Fred, it was an opportunity at the time to solve a challenge in conservation by developing ethical entrepreneurial leaders in conservation, but more specifically to put the spotlight on the concept of the business of conservation.
Yeah.
And so that's what drew me, which is interesting because that's what ALU is about.
Yeah.
It's about developing leaders who identify problems and opportunities and place themselves in a space to solve them. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's what brought me here.
That's quite inspiring. But what, the Dean it's a very big name, right? It's extremely huge, if I might add. What is the most surprising thing about being the Dean of this prestigious university that you didn't expect?
There are two things that come to mind to answer this question. One is serious and one is not so serious. The serious bit is the range of responsibilities. Of course, I read the job description, but it's not quite the same on the ground when you're going from having conversations about improving a DG program to designing a sports program for the university to troubleshooting with your manager, your operations manager, about how to reduce energy consumption on campus. Like, it's such a broad range of responsibilities that takes me by surprise. The other side that is a little less serious is things like this. This wasn't part of what I was saying. And I was saying it. No. They say, brand ambassador, be the face of the university. I didn't quite realize that would mean walking into campus and seeing my face on the screen every day. The marketing team needs to change that video, by the way. Or the struggle of, what am I going to wear for this meeting? Is marketing going to take pictures? I wore this thing in... Yeah. That I wasn't expecting.
That's extremely true. And you just brought my attention to the fact that we actually consume a lot of energy here on campus. I definitely contribute to that, but I don't know if I'm trying to really...
Hint. Turn off the lights.
We will be doing that, don't worry. So now, we've heard about your story, how you got to ALU and stuff like that, but what is a day in the life like? Give us a brief TikTok.
Okay, so I try to wake up at about 5:30.
Okay.
And ideally, I should be getting up at 4:30. So then I have two daughters, a 7-year-old going on 8 and a 1.5-year-old going on 2.
Oh.
And they both now go to school. So there's the early morning routine, which involves getting them ready, feeding them, packing my own breakfast and lunch for the day, trying to get some workout of some sort in. And then there's the car routine, coming to school every day. And that involves, some Bible reading, some music, some French. And I drop them off just down the hill, thankfully. And then I come up to campus. And one of the things I like to do every morning is scribble something on the blackboard in the staff area. So yesterday morning, I wrote on the board, "What makes you African?" And I'm getting some interesting responses from people.
Yeah.
Then after that, I will typically eat my breakfast while doing email or reviewing some sort of document at my desk. Then I might have, a senior leadership committee meeting later in the day that I need to prepare for, look at some data, some stats that I'm going to report on. Then I'll probably have to host some guests. It might be guests from the Qatar Leadership Center or from Hampton University or from somewhere not so fancy. Then after that, I probably have a one-on-one with a student who is going by to the finance office and sees that the dean is there and wants to quickly talk to the dean about their e-mobility project. Then I'll have lunch while I'm probably reviewing another bunch of documents, or once in a while I'm able to sit down out in the sun and have lunch. Then I'll come back to my desk and do some more writing, either working on a document about partnerships or something about faculty.
Yeah.
And then I'd probably wrap up the day with a one-on-one conversation with one of the people who reports directly to me. And then I have school pickup, and then we play music on the way home, getting ready to go prep dinner while I'm doing the last bit of email in the car.
Emails. So that
Yes, emails. Yeah,
okay.
That's my day.
That sounds
Long.
very long. And
Does it sound very interesting?
It ends at 5:30. Yeah.
As long as the kids are in session, I'm able to force myself to get out of the office before 5. When they're on holiday, I have been known to be in the office till 7.
Hallelujah. Okay. You've been at the heart of ALU's journey. Let's talk about leadership. We hear this whole thing of leadership, shaping African leaders. How do you define leadership in the ALU context?
Leadership anywhere, whether it's at ALU or elsewhere, is not what people think it's about.
Okay.
It's not about the fancy title or the perks and preferences that you get.
Yeah.
It's about taking responsibility. Fred used to say something to me after I started taking responsibility at ALU, that your head is on the chopping block for that thing. So it's also about being a chief servant. It's about being an unblocker. One way to think about about a government is that a government is supposed to create an enabling environment and then step out of the way. So those are some of the things that leadership is about. It's about taking responsibility. It's about really putting meaning into signing your name to something, right? When you sign your name on a document, you have to come back and check whether those commitments have been met.
Yeah.
When a student is admitted and you give your veto in the Senate meeting to admit that student, you then have a pastoral care for that student, even when they're not a minor, to make sure that they're okay, that their well-being is taken care of, Leadership is about looking out for other people. It's about looking out for people who report to you and people who don't report to you.
Real.
It's about being an example.
Yeah.
On the days when you feel high energy and on the days when you don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
It's about doing what needs to be done because someone else is relying on you to get it done.
That's extremely true. Okay. Okay. But now let's talk about developing the leaders of Africa, because ALU is very big on African leaders, ethical leaders, but the leaders of Africa, not the world, I guess. But African leaders especially. What does being or developing an African leader look like on a day-to-day?
From day one, when our leaders get here, we already start calling them.
Yeah.
So I think at the start of it is a mindset shift.
Okay.
It's a mindset shift that I can make a change. It's a mindset shift that I can be more than experience has told me that I can be.
Okay.
At ALU, our students are thrust into responsibility right from the very get-go. Right from trimester 1, so find a problem, design a solution to the problem and pitch it to us.
Yeah.
So it's not just the public presentation skills at the end of that course. It is the ability to work with other people and be truly selfless.
Teamwork.
It is about thinking beyond yourself. Because there's something about coming into your 20s that you realize the world doesn't revolve around me.
Never.
And that's the reality of leadership, right? So that's part of it is we really thrust our students in the midst of it from day one to take responsibility. Take responsibility for your actions, take responsibility for the challenges you're seeing around you, and don't just complain, do something about them. So at ALU, that looks like students starting a food venture because they've identified a gap in the range of food that is available. It's about a student starting a club because we don't have a robotics club and I'm interested in robotics and I have friends who are interested as well. So I'll start the club. It's about recognizing that something isn't working the way it should in the system. And instead of complaining about it, I step forward with a proposal for how to fix it. And I'm a part of that change, right? So it's learning by doing is how we approach developing leaders on the continent.
Yeah.
And it's holding them accountable to those improvements that they want to see.
Okay. I feel like you've already done your pitch, but I'll still ask you to. So imagine you're talking to a teenager who is deciding on universities to choose. Maybe the child even wants to go to UK or France. How would you convince them to study in Africa and study here at ALU?
It's interesting. I hardly ever try to convince a student to come to ALU.
Okay.
The question I ask first is, what do you want to do with your education? Why are you going to school? Do you know? What do you want to study in school? And then every now and again, I meet a young person who says, I want to fix this thing. I want to help do X, Y, Z. Then I say, okay, where do you want to go to study that? And they say, I don't know. I'm thinking about this place. I'm thinking about that place. And I say, you want to make sure that you get an education that empowers you to do what you want to do, that empowers you for a future that you don't yet know what it looks like. If you're looking to become a medical doctor and you're sure that's what you want, then all the best, ALU isn't the place for you. But if you're looking to become one of the change makers on the continent that solves problems across healthcare, environment, electricity, water, if you want to be a leader who solves one of those problems, whether it's by business and strategy or by the policy route, then you want to come to ALU. Because ALU is a place where we will develop in you the skills that you need to be able to define that problem and define solutions that are human-centered. But it's also a place where you will connect with peers from across the continent and develop a network that will help you solve that problem, not just in your country, but across the entire continent.
Definitely.
If that's the kind of leader you want to be, then ALU is the place for you.
Okay. That sold me. I would re-enroll into ALU. Okay, so we've talked about how or why we should come to ALU, or people should come to ALU. It's different. It's about innovation, taking the challenge head on. Now, what makes ALU different from the traditional educational model? Because when I was coming to ALU, my mom kept on telling, ALU is not a conventional university. Make sure to take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah.
What makes ALU different? Why is ALU different?
There are 4 things that I like to use to summarize what makes ALU different. The first one is about a scarce resource versus an abundant resource. And this is what I often say to guests when they ask me. On this continent, we have less than 3% of people with a doctorate. The traditional educational model is built around the doctorate, the person who has spent 10, 12 years studying a particular field and is so well versed in that field that they can talk your ears off about it. We don't have that many on the continent. So we couldn't build an educational model around this scarce resource. So instead, our learning model here is student-centered. It is about the student, empowering the student to identify the information that they need, facilitated by lecturers, by some doctorate holders, by some master's holders, who enable them identify the right resources for the problems that they're trying to solve. Which brings me to the second thing. Learning at ALU is mission-centered, mission-driven. Why? There's no point wasting 3 to 5 years of your time in university and then asking the question after the fact, what do I want to do? we're smart enough, empowered enough in this day and age to be able to ask that question at the very beginning of your learning journey, and then be deliberate about preparing yourself for the world after education towards that mission. That's what we do at ALU. It's mission driven. The other thing is that it's very practical.
Okay.
Learning by doing is one of the best ways to learn, right?
Yeah.
Research from the workplace will tell you that 70% of what people learn in the workplace, they learn by doing. So we bring that same methodology, that same principle into the classroom.
Okay.
So that even though you're going to be instructed and information is going to be given to you by a facilitator, the majority of what you will learn by doing research, by doing projects, by working in teams, working in organizations, solving problems for real people and real communities. And then the final thing is the skill set that you get at ALU.
Yeah.
I didn't learn project management until I was done with my undergraduate degree. ALU students learn that in their very first trimester. There's something we call the 7 meta skills. These are, an assemblage of the skill sets that we found from research that people need to thrive, whether it's in banking or in medicine or in the tech world. You have to be able to lead yourself. You have to be able to lead other people. You have to be able to manage complex tasks. You have to be able to analyze data and make decisions with it so you can defend that decision. You have to be able to communicate in a way that people can understand you and come along with you on the journey that you're inviting them to. Those are the skills that we give our students in their very first trimester, in their very first year. So those are some of the things that make learning here different. Layer that on top of the fact that it is the definition of a cultural hotpot. There's nothing quite like learning when you are doing so alongside people that are different from you.
Yeah.
It forces you to rethink everything that you know about life, about learning, about existence. And it opens up your mind to a world of possibilities. It's why many of us want to go abroad. It's why a lot of us actually do go abroad to study, because it's a different context from what you're used to. And it opens up your mind in a different way. So those are some of the things that make learning at ALU very different.
Yeah, going back to what you said about the mission-driven, it's a mission-driven school or stuff like that. I remember the first time I was introduced to that word mission in this school. I was so angry at that facilitator.
Oh, wait.
What do you mean? What do you mean by mission? I said, please give me physics, give me chemistry, give me something. But don't talk to me about mission. But honestly, being able to sit down and reflect, to think about what change I want to bring to a particular sector in this African continent actually made me understand why it's centered around mission. Because I could just imagine me graduating software engineering. Okay, what's next? I go try and work for Google. Google rejects me. I try and work for Microsoft. They reject me. Now I start my own company. It fails and things like that. But I have an idea of what I want to do and how I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it has really helped me in terms of surrounding myself with the right people in the right places at the right time and things like that. Honestly, you guys did your big one. You guys did your big one. So ALU's campus culture is quite different from others. What makes it different? You've talked about how it's very diverse, and I remember telling somebody how we have, I think, over 40 countries represented. 47. Sorry, my bad. No. Over 40, so 47 countries represented here at ALU. You travel with the passport of your feet in this on this campus. Like talking to somebody, you're hearing something. Oh, this person is from Mali. This person is from Chad. My best friend is from Chad. I was also surprised. I thought she was Nigerian. I was surprised. But you get, so what makes campus culture here at ALU very different?
Some people would describe it as being very community-centered. But even more so, there's a strong drive for ownership here. And it's one of our values, right? We have 5 values at ALU.
Yeah.
The very first one in the ORCID values is ownership.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that makes the culture here different. I remember talking to a group of students during a guest visit who said, oh, they're sure that about 60% of ALU students are entrepreneurs. I said, no. You put the entrepreneurs are actually a minority.
Yeah.
They're not many. But the entrepreneurial mindset is so big on campus that it overshadows everything else.
Yeah.
And the thing that makes an entrepreneur unique is they own it. They own the problem. They own the solution. They own the stage. They don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
you don't want to imagine how difficult it is to be those facilitators. Because it's like you give somebody a grade and they're like, this is why I think I don't deserve that grade. The traditional African in you dials back to your own facility, your own lecturer. You're like, what do you mean you don't believe you earned that grade? But that's what we've taught you, right? Is to take ownership and to ask the difficult questions, to not be ashamed to ask those questions, because that's part of what has kept us back on the continent. But I digress. So ownership is a big part of the culture here, is that you can't just pass the buck to somebody else. You can't send me an email with a problem and expect I'm going to solve it for you. No. We will have a conversation about the problem. You will let me know what it is that you think I can do to solve it. And then you will take the lead in solving the problem. That's what we do here at ALU. So that's one of the real big things that makes the culture at ALU different.
Okay. You've led a lot of welcome ceremonies for the orientation. We keep on hearing you talking about this and that. But like, what is the first thing you would want a new student to notice here on campus?
The first thing I would want them to notice, I think there's one thing that is hard not to notice when you come to campus. It's the art.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that much art on my campus. Definitely not this pretty. And not this mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You're walking into the reception and all of those murals giving you African history. And especially when you've had a tour, it just gives so much more meaning to who we are as Africans. Then you have other pieces that are incredibly futuristic and make you wonder why did they just launch the first flying taxi this year? This thing should have been there a long time ago, right? So that's one thing that is difficult not to notice when you walk onto campus. But I think more so than anything else, I would want our students to see each other when they come to campus.
Yeah.
Really see the person that is sitting next to you at orientation, because they might become your business partner. They might become your best friend from another country on the other side. They might become your spouse.
Yeah.
You know, they might become your in-law. They might be your neighbor. They might be your colleague. They might be your boss. They might be your staff member. But to really see the person that is next to you and see them as a human being, that's one thing I'd want our students to definitely see when they come onto campus.
Yeah, that's extremely true. And going back to art, honestly, I came to this school, I said, okay, guys, because I paint, I do artworks, and I was like, I need to put something out there. But it's been 2 years, guys.
I don't know what you're waiting for.
But no,
there's a project coming up that might give you an opportunity to do that.
Amen.
So this trimester, so make sure you take advantage of it when it comes.
Definitely. But honestly, like you said, especially when you go on that tour to understand what this art really means, then you until then you don't really understand. You don't know what is happening. You just see pretty things. You just see colors drawn. But when you go on that tour, you really understand what Africa really represents.
Oh, the other thing is the quotes all over campus. Those things get you thinking. And it's so easy to just walk past them and not really read or really meditate on it. But I would encourage all you students to do that. You know, deliberately take a quote each day and really think about it. What does it mean for me to be African? What does the privilege of education mean for me? What am I supposed to do with this privilege of education? You know, to really ask yourself questions based on the quotes that you're seeing, because they're there for a reason. They're supposed to inspire us to think.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like ALU, they really did their big one when they were painting this place. But okay, now what makes you happy about this campus? Like, it could be traditionally, it could be seeing your staff, seeing people, seeing me. What makes you happy on this campus?
It's seeing people do incredible things.
Yeah.
Last week Friday, I met with 2 students, Ian and Brian, I think. If I got your name wrong, forgive me, but I think it's Ian and Brian. They're working on electric bicycles. An electric bicycle specifically for cargo. And just being able to have that conversation with them and query their model, query the assumptions that they've made, query the audience that they're targeting. That was fun. You know, last week Friday, I sat in on pitch conversations, on pitching sessions for students who are in the current round of the Ventures Lab. And I was so inspired. All of them under 25. one person is solving branding issues for SMEs across the continent. The other person is building incubators for, one-day chicks, from eggs to one-day chicks. Another person is solving poverty one family at a time. I'm like, yo, guys, that makes me happy. Talking to Rainy's story for me is a real example of what we're trying to achieve at ALU. Rainy was a student of the Global Challenges degree. And then he was my intern when I worked at the School of Wildlife Conservation. Then Rainy was an entry-level facilitator for a while. Then he went off to do his master's and came back, and he's now leading a team, right? Leading a team here in the facility, in the academic side. But Rainy is also a farmer, a milk farmer.
Okay.
He's going to be a meat farmer with a couple hundred cows. It's not a joke.
Yeah.
And his farm provides milk to at least one, if not two schools in fact, the school was the reason why he started the dairy farm, Kwawilu. And he was sharing with us at FLD still last Friday how he went home to check on the farm and some experiments that they're doing and got on a bike and told them Kwawilu. And the bike man knew exactly where he was going.
Okay.
Without realizing he was carrying the CEO. But the fact that the CEO of a dairy farm like that would be on a bike.
Yeah.
And that's his nighttime job. His daytime job is facilitating sessions with students. Like, those are the things that make me excited, that give me hope for the continent. Now, everybody might be jackpotting, or it may seem like everybody's jackpotting, but there are a lot of people who are willing to dig their heels in and do the work we need to do to get our continent where it can be.
Okay. Honestly, as you've just spoken, the pressure is getting worse. It's getting worse. But honestly, it's quite inspiring hearing stories of what people are doing, talking to people that are the actual change makers here on the continent. ALU has just marked its 10 years. We're celebrating everywhere I see 10. When you look back, what moments make you, most proud? And what moments make you think about how big ALU's impact is?
To answer this question, I'm forced to think back to my work in the first 5 years here at ALU with the School of Wildlife Conservation. And like I said, with Fred, a big thing that we're trying to fix then was this donor-dependent mindset, trying to inject the concept of the business of conservation into the sector, the mindset that this sector can be financially self-sustaining. And so at one point, Dr. Sue Snymond, world-renowned researcher in wildlife conservation, joined us. And the top thing that, Fred and I wanted her to help get done, and I think she was even thinking about this already before she joined us, was what is now called the Wildlife Economy Investment Index. And what that is it's an index that uses 280 indicators across 32 sectors or so, with information from multiple organizations at this point. So it's not just the primary research that we conduct, but there's primary research that SOWC does with ALU students. On the ground, from when I looked at the map the last time, every single country is now ranked. Every single 150 plus African countries is now ranked on that thing. And what it does is it gives every African country a score for how well the wildlife economy is contributing to the national GDP. And so we've been able to identify top 5 countries, bottom 5 countries. And there is quite nothing that gets people moving like a competition.
Of course.
When you see that you're getting ranked against somebody else and what, Burkina Faso is higher than we are? No, we need to fix that, right? And does it work for everybody? Maybe not. But it does give you a tangible measure to see how well you're doing and how well you're not doing.
Yeah.
It gives organizations that are involved in the wildlife economy in each of these countries, it's something to aspire to, right? What can we do to shift that number?
Yeah.
That's one thing I look back on that I'm super proud of that we've achieved. There's a lot that we've achieved at ALU in terms of like the number of graduates and the amount of money that our student ventures have raised, the number of jobs that our graduates create on average. It's 13 jobs on average that are created by 25% of our graduates right now.
Okay.
So there's a lot that is inspiring that we've achieved over these 10 years. But I think about the Wildlife Economy Investment Index because that has continental-wide impact.
Yeah.
And it started with a small dream of, can we enable this sector to think more from a business perspective. And it's happening.
Yeah. Okay. Can you share a story of an alumni or a student that what they're doing really captures the impact that ALU has?
I was talking earlier on about Rainy, and I'm stuck on Rainy at this point. Probably because I worked with Rainy.
Yeah.
Rainy was my intern, like I said. ALU grad, worked at ALU, and works at ALU, did his master's abroad, and came back.
Yeah.
That for me is powerful.
Yeah.
That he will have an opportunity to go do his master's abroad, and the guy didn't japa permanently. He's come back, and he's no shade to doing fashion or anything else, right? But there are some needs on the continent that are pivotal.
Yeah.
Power, water, housing, food. Like these are critical. Food. Bottom of the pyramid needs. Like these are first level Maslow hierarchy, right? And the man has decided, I want to be a part of the food revolution on this continent by making sure that people have milk.
Yeah.
And when you have the privilege of education like you and I do, like most people who are watching this do, it's easy to take for granted how important it is to have milk or eggs. Honestly. And what that can do to the nutritional profile of a child, what that does to their development in the first 5 years, to have the right amount of milk and eggs, in their diet. So to have someone like Rainy, who is like, I could go abroad, do my master's, but still come back and set up Coahuilo. That for me, and I know he's not the only one, right? There's so many other graduates like him. How much time do you have is the question, but Rainy for me is the most recent example in my head of an alum that gives me hope.
Yeah.
Really, that the model is working.
Yeah.
And this is somebody who, even here on campus, one of the things we've been figuring out over the last year is how do we properly incorporate artificial intelligence into learning at ALU?
Yeah.
Without starting a brand new degree. And might we do that? Maybe. But AI is a part of life at this point. And how do we make sure that our students are using it and using it ethically? Right? The faculty are able to use it and using it ethically and professionally. And AI, I say AI, Rainy is on our community of practice internally for artificial intelligence, putting together a policy and, very clear documents about this is how we use AI at ALU. This is how we enable our students to use it or not use it. So yeah, I'm stuck on Rainy. Right?
Slaps to Rainy.
Slaps to Rainy.
The decennial year is more than just a big celebration, merch, videos that marketing continues to release. It is more about reflection. So what is the biggest lesson that ALU has learned over the past 10 years?
Biggest is a heavy word to use right now because we've learned a lot of things.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot of things about what it takes to innovate in education.
Yeah.
And I'm reminded of another lesson right now, other than the one I was planning to share. We've learned a lot about what it means to innovate in education, about what it means to build an organization with innovators and A achievers all over the place. One thing that we have learned, and I'm going to go with this other one, Veda shared 10 different lessons recently, and I hope that at some point that will be available for people to learn from, because it was a lot of really hard hitting lessons coming from someone who's been with the AL group for 15 years, I think. But one thing that I have seen us learn here in Rwanda is that if you lead, others will follow. And like I said, this isn't the one I was planning to share, but I am thinking about this one right now specifically for the Rwandan context. When we came to Rwanda to accredit programs way back, we wanted to accredit internships. We wanted them to be credit bearing. But the model at the time from the Higher Education Commission didn't have room for that. And we said, okay, you know what? It won't be accredited, but they're going to do it. You can't graduate if you don't do your internship.
Do that, yeah.
Most recently, just from July, I found out from the Minister of Education that the ministry is now encouraging other institutions to make internships mandatory and credit bearing. When we reaccredited the International Business and Trade degree, we were able to make internships credit bearing.
Yeah.
When we accredited BL and BSc, we were able to make it credit bearing. Now, is it possible to make some innovative decisions that you have to backtrack on? Yes. We've learned that lesson as well.
Yeah.
Right? But there are some innovations. If you're thoroughly convinced and you have the data to back it up. Because already at that time, the data showed us that people who enter the world of work with work experience had an edge.
Yeah.
Employers were already demanding that fresh graduates come with 5 years of work experience. And we all said, where are they supposed to get it?
Yeah.
They say, okay, at least have 1 year. Where? Who is going to employ me while I'm a student?
Yeah.
So we said, okay, instead of us pushing back at the employer, who is the customer of the educational space, we said, let's try and make that happen. Fred said, let's try and make that happen. Let's make internships a required part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
And we've now found that we led the way and others have followed.
Okay.
So if the data backs you up,
Yeah.
lead.
Snaps.
They will follow.
Snaps to that. So now that ALU is 10, what is your boldest hope for the next 10 years?
Ooh. What is my boldest hope for the next 10 years? My boldest hope for ALU over the next 10 years is that this institution becomes the top choice on the continent for higher education, especially for bold, innovative leaders.
Okay. Do you want to shed some light on that?
Right now, ALU is one of the top 10 choices, in my opinion. Yes, because I've spoken to enough people who are like, oh my God, ALU, yeah, I want to go there. And the thing that holds some people back is, but my parents want me to study.
Yeah.
But I really want to be. But you don't have that degree.
Yeah.
So there's a lot packed into it when I say that we are the top choice for bold, innovative leaders on the continent. It means that we're able to evolve and grow into that institution that is able to take up all of those students who are best fit for ALU.
Yeah.
It is that our processes and our systems function optimally to be able to keep the engine running for all of them.
Yeah.
Right? It is that our brand is without blemish. Our brand is recognizable world over, so that you don't have to explain to mommy and daddy this ALU you are trying to go to. There's no need. You say ALU and they're like, oh yes, of course, go. You know, the same way you say, mommy, I want to go to Ashese, or I want to go to Yale, I want to go to Harvard. And they're like, yeah, sure, I know what that is. Off you go, right? Those are some of the things that are packed into that hope for me, is that ALU is the top choice for higher education for bold, innovative leaders on the continent.
Yeah.
And beyond.
And beyond, of course. Global.
We global already.
Of course. What advice would you give to a new student who is stepping into this next decade?
Stepping with 2 feet and your 2 hands. If I don't step in, jump in. Dive. There's no better time to be a student at ALU.
Yeah.
There's no better time. There's so many opportunities, Mauritius, Rwanda, to really leave an impact. So don't just come here and waka pass. Like, you know how secondary school, when I went to secondary school, which was like quite a while back, let's not go there. But we used to do this sign out on the walls, and people would write on the walls, Mush was here.
We still do that.
You still do it. Still do that. And okay, that's good to know for things never change. You know, Emanuela was here. Leave your was here on the wall.
Yeah.
Right? Do something meaningful, impactful, that generations after will be able to say, oh, that's what that person did.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I want to be like that person. So if there's something you want to try out, something that you think just might work, try. What's the worst that can happen is you fail. The worst that can happen is the university will say you don't have money to pay for it. Then you find somebody outside to pay for it.
Go fund me.
You know? Do a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
But jump in with 2 feet and really own your experience here. Don't wait for someone to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Seek guidance, yes. There's a lot of safety in the midst of counsel.
Yeah.
But Don't be waiting for someone to give you agency. Jump in with 2 feet first. Learn every lesson that you can while you're there. Don't think you know it all. You don't. You don't know it all. But do you have great ideas? Yes. Are you able to think in ways that people who've gone before you can't think? Yes. So jump in. 2 feet first. And leave your was here on the wall.
Leave your footprints in the concrete hands of time. Exactly. So what are your final words for, people at ALU? On this campus.
Final word. Am I leaving?
No. on this episode, please. What are your final words for the people?
What are my final words for the people? There's a lot that we can do on the continent. There's a lot of opportunity to fix the problems that bug us, to take advantage of the opportunities that are staring us in the face. Do your bit. Do your bit to make the continent a better place for you and for the people around you, not just the people that you care about. But even if you don't get to do any of that grandiose, big stuff, show up. Show up in your full self, your full capacity every single day. Show up and do the best that you can.
Yeah. Okay, so to end off this beautiful episode, what a nice episode it has been. I'm gonna give you a quick icebreaker.
Oh dear.
ALU icebreaker type. Finish this sentence. Okay? ALU at 10 is just the beginning of
reimagining education by Africa for the world.
Okay, you did that. Okay. That was an inspiring start to the ALU podcast. A reminder that the future of education in Africa isn't just about classrooms. It's about creating leaders who can solve real challenges and build lasting change. A big thank you to our guest, the Dean of ALU, guys, for sharing her insights and vision of the next generation of African leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and of course, follow us on all social media platforms to stay connected with stories that celebrate leadership, innovation, and purpose. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep reimagining Africa's future. Bye.
Bye.